Hello and welcome to the Crimson Stitchery. The Crimson Stitchery is a video channel about making all things that are beautiful and useful, and the majority of that making takes place right here in my living room. The Crimson Stitchery is my sofa and it's my studio. In an ideal world, this would be my living room every day, with lots of plants to provide fresh air, a delightful ambience, and bonus hipster properties. A second-hand sofa with second-hand sofa decorations, but first-hand stains caused by too much excitement while drinking red wine. Moving to the side, we have more plants, music books, an Algerian oud, and a little basket full of works in progress to be knitted on. And finally, my coffee table storage chest, complete with candle, vintage carafe of water, and a real paperback book. In an ideal world, all of my knitting tools and materials would live in this coffee table chest, with yarn in the bottom and tools and equipment in the top. But in fact, the reality is this. Hey everyone, welcome to another video in my Stashless 2020 series, a year-long endeavour to help us all, but mainly myself, get rid of my knitting stash. I am focusing on yarn for this challenge because I can't even think about the state of my fabric stash right now. So in this video, I am going to go through my entire stash, which is making me feel nauseous, and attempt to sort it out and get some kind of order and reason to the madness. Now, the benefits of doing this is literally so that I can physically see what I have in front of me. A lot of my stash has been stuffed into this large cardboard box and being stored under my bed. Also, a lot of it is being stored in cotton tote bags. So I have a kind of vague mental idea of what I have, but it will be really good to just be confronted with exactly what I have so that I can know and so that I can make a plan. So this is not a Marie Kondo KonMari decluttering thing. I'm not going to be hugging and kissing my yarn and telling it how much it sparks joy. But if you'd want to do that, please go ahead. I wouldn't even know. You could be snogging your yarn. I would have no idea. I just want to say right up front that all of this stuff, all of these videos, this exercise that I'm about to do is subjective. It's about how I feel about my stash. You might feel completely differently. You might think I have a tiny stash. You might think it's really ginormous and that I'm a horrible hoarder. We're all going to have different opinions, and the whole point of Stashless 2020 is for everybody to individually take stock and figure out how it is that they want to live with knitting materials, with yarn in their lives, how you want to proceed. So do join in with the hashtag Stashless 2020 over on Instagram or Ravelry and YouTube, and join in our Ravelry group where we have a chatter thread going on as well. But before I get started with anything, I will be pouring myself a glass of wine. Wine is optional. You don't have to have alcohol. You can have any kind of beverage you want. But I want wine. I've also got out some Christmas chocolates to finish off. So I'm all set up. I've got my beverages, I've got wine and water, I've got a chocolate for sustenance. I'm home alone, it's Sunday evening. I've drawn the curtains so that no one can spy on me. And I've got about 2 hours until I think my partner's coming home. So let's get started. I'm just gonna start by getting everything out and having a look. So, piece of plastic bag. The sofa is full. There's a big pile of stuff on the floor. And then there's my empty box, my knitting basket, and a bunch of old project bags and plastic bags and stuff like that. So they're all empty. Now I will say that I've currently created a gigantic mess, and it's obviously worse than it was before because all of my stuff wasn't just thrown in willy-nilly before. It was organised in certain ways, but at the same time I have found things through the process of putting everything out. I have found things that A, were definitely in the wrong place, and B, that I'd forgotten about. Now, I will also add that I did go through the Marie Kondo decluttering process in about 2015, I think it was. So at this point, I'm really in the situation where I'm holding on to things because I feel guilty or because I don't like it. You know, I am at the point in my life where if I don't have a purpose for something, if it's not beautiful or useful, which is the motto of this channel, I tend not to hold on to it. And yet I'm definitely, just looking here, I am definitely holding on to much more than I A, need to be, and B, am comfortable with. So I think my next stage is going to be to group the yarns back together in categories, which they arguably already were before I created this mess. But I'm just going to redo it anyway into little piles, so let's get started. So I've got maybe halfway through sorting out the gigantic piles, and I thought I'd just talk you through what I've got so far. So I've got a bag of 2-ply woolen spun yarns that are suitable for colour work of various different types. I've got 2 piles of sock yarns, one for sport weight and one for fingering weight, and I already had this jar going, which is of real scrap ends of sock yarns, like just a little tiny bit which I use for darning. So when it's got like a little bit leftover skein as opposed to a whole skein, I just put those back in the bag for general sock knitting. And I'll just use them again. Put the sock yarns back in the bag. These are a bit problematic because they are technically a sock yarn but not containing nylon. However, I bought them for a scarf project, then changed my mind and decided that I'd rather them be a sweater, but I don't have enough quantity to be a sweater. So yeah, but they're not going to be socks, so I won't put them in the sock pile. So socks got a separate section for sport, and then I've got a bag for cotton yarns of various types. I've debated about whether just to get rid of these for quite a long time, and I have ended up not doing that, just because the cotton yarn does seem to come in handy on the odd occasions, like wanting to make a dishcloth, or I don't even know. So it's the kind of thing where I could, like Marie Kondo, just get rid of it because I'm not that bothered, or I could just hang on to it. We'll see. Yeah, I think the yellow stuff I will keep as an intended sweater quantity, so I will put them so I'll put them aside. So then I've got over here, I've got sweater quantity bags. So yeah, sock yarn, woolen spun, cotton. Rescue my glass of wine. And then down here at the moment, I've got sweater quantities, including whips, works in progress. So this is maybe a quarter of a sweater. One sweater's quantity, another sweater's quantity for a striped sweater, and let's keep going. Is now in its own category and it's been put back into some sort of bag, and I just want to give a shout out to all of the random things that I've found while clearing out my stash. Countless yarn labels, countless, a bunch of D-rings, a packet of mothballs, which are now illegal in the UK, so this is contraband, and a bunch of random overlocker thread. So yeah, it's quite something. So this is all of it now. It still looks terrible, but you'll note that it's all bagged up. So it's no longer just an explosion and a pile. And my God, my sofa looks filthy. I've tried cleaning it loads of times with loads of different things, okay? Normally there's someone sitting on it. What can I say? So I'm now going to attempt to talk through what I've done and what my thinking is now that I have gone through everything that I have and regrouped it into some kind of logical formation. Firstly, I found a whole bunch of swatches which were just dangled about in random places. This one for this very jumper, as you can see. Whilst I was finding all these swatches, I also found a crochet wool doily that I made. And completely forgot about, so I'm gonna do something with that. Yeah, I think I just made that more out of an impulse rather than anything else, because I'm not the biggest fan of doilies in my home, although I think that they look very nice. And then I found an antique lace cotton doily, which was from like a 90-year-old lady that died 10 years ago that lived down the street, I think, something like that, you know. So a bunch of swatches, and I do have a little bag for swatches and I hang on to them. And I've thought about sewing them together and making them into a lap blanket, but to be honest with you, they don't look very nice when they're all laid out together. So I'm not sure what's going on with these swatches. I might end up binning them one day. I'm not sure, that's a question mark. So a bag of swatches, which I am just hanging on to. Next up is my works in progress and my sweater quantities. So works in progress, channel subscribers might recognise some of these from the whip along, as some of them are long-standing unfinished works in progress whips that I didn't manage to do during the whip along, which was a knit along challenge that took place last year. So I've got one summer tank there. I found a skein of sock yarn that I was looking for an existing project, so that's for a current pair of socks. So this is going in another project bag for the pair of socks that I'm working on right now. So that's 2 whips. What else have we got? Oh, I've got a scrap jumper that I'm currently working on. I actually have a bag of assorted yarns for another scrap jumper, a crochet scrap jumper that I have started working on, but I haven't got very far. So I've got to say that, yeah, I've only done 3 inches of ribbing of the crochet. So I've got to say that throwing all of this out onto the floor was actually not very helpful. But I stuck to my process anyway. So yeah, I've got some scrap yarns here that I have set aside for that specific project. So that's 3 whips. Oop. That one belonged to it too. What else have I got? Oh, I've got a jumper project that I started like in the spring last year, 2019, and didn't get very far on, but that's all singled out. So that's 4 whips. This is an unsuccessful hat design project that I need to rip out and start again, but that's sort of on hiatus, so I don't count that. Let's count that as half. I've got a summer top. So 4.5, 5.5, and black summer top that again I've done half of one piece of the body and I need to do the rest of it, but there's no sleeves, so when I actually get around to doing that it will be okay. So is that everything? Looking around, oh, one more, of course, this cardigan project is nearly finished. I'm like up to here and I only have to do the very upper collar part. So 1, 2, 3, 4.5, 5, 6 whips. That makes sense. That makes sense. Because there's lots of stuff that I had started and like not done very much of. Like this has got 1.5 inches or 3 centimeters on it. And the same with this. I just went to arrange these in a much more aesthetically pleasing wooden crate, and as I did it I found another whip, so it's actually 7.5, but let's be honest, it's actually 8 whips. 8. Anyway, let's carry on. I put that down there. 8 whips. The next thing is the sweater quantities. So we've got this blue and white alpaca yarn that a friend gave me when she was clearing out. I was very happy to have it, but I'm going to knit a Breton striped sweater with. So that's 1. A load of yarn that I bought myself for my birthday because it was on sale. 2. What's this? Oh, this is a jumper that I knit in 2018 and it was unsuccessful, and I've been meaning to frog it and knit it into something better ever since. So that's 3. What else? Oh, 4 and 5. Beautiful, beautiful lace weight yarn that's going to become a crochet dress that channel viewers helped me decide on doing. So 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, the luminous chartreuse yellow stuff that actually needs more yardage in order to become like a vintage style cropped and cabled sweater. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 sweater quantities, 8 works in progress. Even if I can get the 8 works in progress done, which I'm not, well, one of them's a pair of socks, so I guess it's possible, and one's a sweater that's nearly finished, so yeah, it's a possibility, but like also doing these sweater quantities as well, like it's a lot to be getting on with, and I definitely don't need to buy any new yarn. I mean, it's quite obvious to me as it is that I've got more than enough to be getting on with, and yeah, just more yarn isn't necessary. Let's have a quick refreshment. So everything I've got to the right is something that I have to deal with, including dealing with a glass of wine. And then now everything on the left is like questionable stuff. So we've already started on the left with a bag of swatches. Not really quite sure what to do with those. They could be useful to have around if I need to do some darning, because I could unravel them and mend the sweater, but I also, as you're going to see, have got like leftover yarn from projects that I could use for darning. So question mark. Another question mark, random balls of cotton yarn, like I've spoken about already. A big bag of sock yarns. Now this really surprised me. I thought I was mentally much more on top of the amount of sock yarns that I have. And every time I saw one of the balls, I was like, oh yeah, I remember that. Oh yeah, I remember that. But then just when it got all together, I'm very surprised. And I've separated out inside here with sport weight yarns and fingering weight yarns. And there's certain balls, most balls here I'd say are earmarked for the project, but I thought that I had got through more scraps than I had. I was surprised to see I had quite a lot. As I said, I've got my jar of darning leftovers too. But, you know, like with this amount of yarn and like this amount of yarn, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily put these two together, but like, you know, it's enough yarn physically to knit another pair of adult socks. Actually, I like that mustard yellow with that nutmeg kind of colour. That's cool, really 70s. So there's literally only one skein of yarn in here that I don't like, and that's because I ordered it online and the colour when it came was just so vastly different from anything that I'd seen on screen, and I had checked on Ravelry and people's projects and on the shop website, and when it came it was just so different. So there's only one thing here that I don't really like, but everything else I had something in mind for it. So sock yarn counts. There's this phrase that I've heard bandied about when it comes to yarn shopping, like, oh, sock yarn doesn't count, you can just buy some sock yarn. But when it's kind of all in the bag like this and sitting on your lap and you can feel it weighing down, like sock yarn definitely counts. So the reason that I've accumulated a bit more sock yarn was because I was doing some designing and I had certain kind of aesthetics in mind. But when it comes to just general everyday socks and gift knitting, I think I can definitely be knitting a lot more socks, especially from leftovers and scraps in my stash. My last 2 bags that I've separated out are actually bigger than the sock yarn bag, and they're both equally worrying. So the first one is woolen spun 2 and 3 ply yarns that's suitable for colour work, things that are hairy, rustic and woolly. They're sort of a similar style. And then this bag here is just randoms. It's just random stuff. Stuff that someone's gave me because they found it on the street and they knew that I liked knitting, and it was 100% merino yarn that was free. Gorgeous 100% wool boucle yarn that I bought intending to be something specific and now can't remember what it is and never got around to doing it. And the classic leftovers of costly, lovely yarn that I've made the project, and what do I do with it? And this is pretty full, like 2 leftover skeins of alpaca silk from a jumper, a significant leftover ball from another jumper project where I was thinking about going back and lengthening the cuffs, and this ball of yarn would do that, so I shouldn't use it for anything else. But am I really going to lengthen the cuffs because it's been like 3 years now? Yeah, 3 years, maybe even 4 since I knit it. Is it really going to happen? So although this bag is like really pretty because it's the woolen spun 2 plies and they're of a kind, and this bag is just random and chaotic, they're actually the same because they are 2 bags of yarn that have absolutely no clear purpose and intention. Unlike all of this stuff here, the sweater quantities, the whips and the sock yarns, I know that I will get to, so there's a bit too much of it. I'd prefer it to be gone, but I know that it will be dealt with. But these 2 are just like unknown quantities. And I was pulling from these kind of sections when I put together yarns for my scrap jumper, which is in the whip pile, and for my caterpillar scrap jumper. And also in the past, I've done a lot of blankets and cushion making for friends and relatives, especially children in the family. Smaller lap-sized crochet blankets were perfect for them. However, I know that I myself am very strict on colour schemes. I think about the use of colour very carefully, sometimes experimentally, but in a very particular way. I'm not just going to put any old yarn in a project next to each other if the colours and the texture and the feel and the weighting of it all isn't right. So even when I've done leftover projects for like blankets and cushions, they've kept to a very strict colour scheme. It might be wide, but it's very strict. Like this blanket back here, the rule was there couldn't be anything red. There could be pink and burgundy, but no red tones and no black tones. Everything is like autumnal jewel colours. Yeah, it's like my way of thinking about design. So I'm not sure. I mean, it's possible that I could make some lap blankets. Yeah, it's certainly possible. Like I've got a lot of white, I've got this skein of blue. I could probably put something together, and that would make me feel really good if I pulled those together and thought about it. But I think another thing that's hard is that some of the things in these bags are very precious and costly, and some are worth nothing really, and they have no monetary value. But then I've got things like a skein of Kiviot yarn that is so precious and was purchased in a hotel gift shop in Lake Victoria in Canada when I was 14 years old. And it's so precious and so thin and fine that I've never managed to knit anything from it, but it was so expensive. So what do I do with it? What do I do with it? And I don't even like purple anymore, but they only had purple in stock in the shop. There was no choice of colours. So my great aunt bought it for me as a treat because she knew I liked knitting. It's really hard. And obviously stuff like this Kiviot has survived countless destashes already, and yeah, it's still sitting there unused. So that is my stash sorting for now. My coffee table here has got now 1 empty drawer, and I'm going to refill it with stuff that I know has got a purpose. So that's going to be the sock yarns, and that's what's going to live there. But I have a really big question mark about the bag of random yarns, the bag of 2-ply woolen spun yarns, and the bag of swatches, and the bag of cotton stuff. I just don't know. Like, if it was gone from my life, especially the bag of randoms, if it was gone from my life, would I notice? Maybe not. Is it wasteful? Yes, it is. So, yeah. Deep breath. Pause for a glass of wine. So all of this has been really helpful for me in terms of my Stash List 2020 exercise. Because when I posted my initial video about my idea to do Stash List 2020 to get rid of my stash by the end of the year, I thought that I had 6 sweater quantities in my stash, but I've actually got far more, and I had actually a few more whips than I had realised, more works in progress, and I need to get on with them. But this has definitely fueled my incentive not to buy any more yarn. I think if there's like a very particular yarn that I need for a very particular situation, I would consider buying it, but I just need to stop. And I'm going to do another video talking about ways that yarn finds its way into our lives and ways that we can try to begin changing our thinking surrounding acquiring yarn in whatever way that is, so that we can work towards the Sasha's 2020 goal, or just so that we can make the changes that we want in our lives. And again, that's going to be looking different for everybody. I would honestly be quite happy if they had like the next sweater quantity ready to go, a work in progress, and a little bit of sock yarn, like 3 socks worth of sock yarn. But this is just excessive. And also, I want to stress the fact that I don't buy yarn very frequently. I don't do shopping as a leisure activity. It's not something that I pursue. It's not. I don't, you know, with the exception if I am on holiday and I'm walking around in a new city or town, I will enjoy window shopping then. Yeah, it's honestly like, how did it happen? How did it happen? I didn't intend for it to happen. I'm really, really surprised. So yeah, I'm going to address that all in another video. Meanwhile, if you've enjoyed this video, do give it a thumbs up. Please leave me a comment to let me know if you're going to do this as well. And if not, why not? I love hearing from viewers. The Crimson Stitchery is normally a fortnightly podcast all about knitting, mending, sewing, and making all things that are beautiful and useful, even if that means sometimes making a mess. So do find me online, click in the down bar below for more links, and wish me luck.